Behind the ancient, gilded gates of one of the world's most famous institutions, a storm of unprecedented magnitude is quietly, yet violently, breaking. For decades, the public has been trained to see only what the monarchy wants them to see: polished carriages, impeccably timed waves from balconies, and a unified front that projects total stability across the globe. But tonight, that flawless illusion is shattering into a million irreparable pieces. We are witnessing the collapse of one of the most complicated, carefully managed relationships within the royal family, and the fallout is poised to rewrite modern history. Imagine waking up to what is supposed to be a day of quiet celebration, only to find it morphing into an absolute, inescapable nightmare. That is exactly what unfolded on the birthday of the former Duke of York. Instead of well wishes and private family gatherings, the day was eclipsed by an event so shocking it sent shockwaves through the very foundation of the establishment. Reports claim the former prince was detained on suspicion of misconduct in public office. An arrest. A royal, detained by authorities. It is a sentence that feels almost impossible to say out loud, yet it is the terrifying reality currently echoing through the hallowed halls of power. At the dead center of this unimaginable crisis are two women who have spent their entire lives navigating the treacherous waters of royal obligation and familial loyalty, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. For years, these two sisters have masterfully maintained a calm, dignified public image. They have often been viewed as the collateral damage of relentless scandals, yet they stood firmly, almost stubbornly, beside their father. They absorbed the brutal blows of public opinion. They smiled for the cameras. They did exactly what was expected of them, carrying the heavy burden of a legacy they did not entirely create. Many royal watchers truly believed the sisters were completely innocent bystanders, unfairly dragged into a chaotic storm that had absolutely nothing to do with them personally. But now, everything they have fought so desperately to protect is completely unraveling before their very eyes. Sources from deep inside the palace describe the sisters as utterly horrified, profoundly distressed, and struggling to simply hold themselves together. The psychological toll of seeing the man they have defended for so long face such a catastrophic public reckoning is unimaginable. It is not just the shock of the detention itself. It is the bone-chilling realization that the protective shield of the crown, the invisible barrier that has kept them safe from the harshest realities of the outside world, has officially been dismantled. The palace is no longer a sanctuary for them. It has become a theater of absolute, unforgiving accountability. The tension has been building for months, perhaps years, hiding just beneath the surface of polite royal engagements and forced smiles. But the ultimate breaking point did not come from the relentless press, and it did not come from the angry public. It came from within the family itself. It was the ultimate betrayal, or perhaps, depending on how you look at it, the ultimate act of institutional self-preservation. Behind closed doors, away from the prying eyes of the media, a private confrontation took place that completely decimated the sisters' carefully guarded world. It is reported that the heir to the throne, the Prince of Wales, privately confronted Beatrice and Eugenie. This was not a comforting conversation between grieving cousins. It was an interrogation. It was a strategic maneuver executed by a future king who has realized that the survival of the monarchy relies entirely on cutting away the infected branches of the family tree. The prince reportedly presented the sisters with an internal dossier containing information so damaging, so undeniable, that it left them visibly shaken and entirely frozen out. They were blindsided by revelations they either did not know or desperately hoped would remain buried in the shadows forever. What exactly was in those devastating documents? What did the future king reveal during that tense, suffocating meeting that made the blood drain from the sisters' faces? Was it undeniable proof of financial ties that crossed the line from questionable to highly dangerous? Was it a clear indication that their own outside business ventures were hopelessly entangled with the very dark networks that brought their father down? Or was it something even more sinister, a cold, hard warning that the institution they have served their whole lives is now officially viewing them not as beloved family members, but as a severe reputational threat? The immediate aftermath of this secret confrontation was swift and merciless. The sisters have been unceremoniously banned from attending the most prestigious royal events of the summer. No grand processions, no smiling waves from the royal enclosure. Invitations that used to arrive automatically have abruptly stopped. This is not a temporary suspension. This is a calculated exile. It is a powerful public demonstration by an institution that is actively purging its vulnerabilities to survive. The fairy tale is officially over. The era of unconditional protection is dead. As the palace enters a ruthless new phase of discipline, Beatrice and Eugenie find themselves standing on the precipice of absolute ruin, isolated from the only world they have ever known. But the most terrifying question remains unanswered. If the crown is willing to sacrifice its own blood to save its image, what dark secrets did they actually find? Keep your eyes locked right here, because the truth we are about to uncover in the next few minutes will completely change how you view the world's most famous family. For over 3 decades, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie managed to pull off an incredibly delicate high-wire act. To the outside world, they were the modern, relatable, and hardworking faces of the extended royal family. Unlike their disgraced father, the former Duke of York, the sisters were viewed with a profound sense of public sympathy. They were the ultimate collateral damage. Innocent daughters forced to navigate the blinding glare of the global spotlight while their father's catastrophic connections to the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein threatened to pull their entire legacy under. For years, they smiled politely, attended their charity functions, and maintained a fierce, unwavering loyalty to the man who raised them. They played the game perfectly, convincing almost everyone that they were entirely separate from the dark, toxic clouds gathering over their family home. But behind the heavily guarded doors of the palace, the mood had violently shifted. The sympathy that once shielded the two sisters began to rapidly evaporate, replaced by a cold, calculating suspicion. Senior members of the monarchy, acutely aware that public trust was hanging by a thread, began to ask the dangerous questions they had avoided for years. Were the York sisters truly as distant from the controversy as they claimed? Slowly but surely, toxic whispers began to circulate through the corridors of power. Rumors of hidden financial links, questionable social circles, and past associations began to paint a deeply uncomfortable picture. Even though not a single shred of this had been proven in a court of law, the mere optics were a ticking time bomb. The crown could no longer afford the luxury of giving anyone the benefit of the doubt. The consequences of this shifting tide were swift, brutal, and entirely public. The absolute clearest signal that the sisters had been brutally cut off came in the form of a devastating decree. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie were officially barred from attending the prestigious Royal Ascot. To the untrained eye, missing a horse race might seem like a trivial inconvenience, but in the ruthlessly hierarchical world of the British monarchy, Royal Ascot is far more than a sporting event. It is the absolute pinnacle of the summer social calendar, a highly visible, globally broadcast theater where royal favor is openly displayed. To walk in the royal procession, to mingle in the exclusive royal enclosure, is to be stamped with the official seal of approval from the sovereign himself. Therefore, being completely excluded from this grand tradition is not merely a minor scheduling conflict. It is a calculated, blood-chilling public execution of their royal status. It is a neon sign flashing to the entire world that the York sisters are officially persona non grata. They were not just asked to step back, they were actively erased from the family portrait. The agony of this public shunning reportedly left the sisters completely devastated, struggling to comprehend how the family they had been loyal to their entire lives could orchestrate such a ruthless public humiliation. But who exactly possessed the authority and the sheer willpower to pull the trigger on such a devastating move? Sources leak that the ultimate decision came directly from the desk of King Charles III, following hours of agonizing and intense discussions behind palace walls. For a very long time, the king had desperately tried to shield his nieces from the crushing weight of their father's sins. The paternal argument was simple and deeply human. The daughters should not be punished for the catastrophic errors of the father. However, the king does not rule in a vacuum, and the pressure to protect the institution eventually overpowered any lingering family sentiment. The true architects of this zero-tolerance policy, the ones driving this merciless new era, are reported to be Prince William and his wife, Catherine, the Princess of Wales. With their eyes locked firmly on the future of the crown, William and Catherine fiercely argued that the monarchy simply could not survive even the faintest, most microscopic association with the Epstein scandal. Any proximity to the York brand was deemed a terminal risk to the survival of the institution. Under their rising influence, the palace adopted a stark, unforgiving doctrine. Anyone whose reputation could even indirectly damage the crown is a liability that must be amputated. And so, the quiet, systematic erasure began. Invitations to high-profile diplomatic receptions and glamorous charity galas that used to arrive on the sisters' desks automatically simply stopped coming. By the early months of 2026, insiders noted that Beatrice and Eugenie had vanished from almost every official royal schedule. They have been aggressively pushed to the absolute outer fringes of royal life, forced to watch the institution they love move on seamlessly without them. Yet, this heartbreaking social exile and the agonizing ban from Royal Ascot are merely the visible symptoms of a much darker, much more terrifying disease infecting the House of Windsor. The sudden, brutal banishment of the sisters was not just a precaution, it was a desperate reaction to a specific, highly classified discovery. As Prince William and Princess Anne quietly took the reins of a massive internal audit, they unearthed a secret so explosive it threatened to bring the entire establishment to its knees. What exactly did this ruthless internal investigation find hiding in the sisters' private ledgers? The bombshell truth is about to be dragged into the light, and it is far more disturbing than anyone could have ever imagined. Keep watching, because the deeper we go into the palace archives, the darker the secrets become. Behind the heavy velvet curtains and bulletproof glass of the royal residences, a silent, ruthless coup had already taken place. The old guard, with its soft spots for family sentiment and its reliance on the archaic mantra of never complaining and never explaining, was officially dead. In its place, a terrifyingly efficient new regime had risen. At the absolute center of this seismic shift stood two of the most formidable figures in modern royal history, the future king, Prince William, and the monarchy's most disciplined soldier, Princess Anne. Together, they forged an unyielding alliance, an internal tribunal operating with one singular, cold-blooded objective: the absolute preservation of the crown, no matter whose heart had to be broken in the process. For William and Anne, the existential threat to the institution was no longer just the scandalous behavior of the former Duke of York. The threat was the lingering infection of his legacy. Late in the year 2025, driven by a desperate need to bulletproof the monarchy against a hostile digital media landscape, William quietly introduced a revolutionary internal policy. It was a rigorous, mandatory ethics and financial verification protocol. Think of it as a financial X-ray designed to strip away the secrecy from the private dealings of anyone holding royal status. It demanded total transparency regarding outside business ventures, shell companies, private investments, and most importantly, foreign partnerships. The trap was set, and it was ingeniously simple. Most members of the extended family, recognizing the shifting power dynamics, quietly handed over their ledgers and complied without a single whisper of protest. But Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie made a catastrophic miscalculation, perhaps blinded by a lifelong reliance on their royal birthright, or perhaps genuinely believing their private lives were still their own. The sisters hesitated. According to deep-level palace insiders, they repeatedly dodged the full verification process. They offered partial disclosures. They delayed. What they likely viewed as a minor administrative pushback against an overstepping cousin was, in reality, the exact trigger that sealed their devastating fate. To Prince William and Princess Anne, a refusal to be utterly transparent was infinitely worse than a confession. In the high-stakes world of royal optics, silence breeds suspicion. And suspicion is a cancer. Immediately, the flashing red alarms were tripped. Princess Anne, a woman renowned for her razor-sharp focus and total lack of sentimentality, personally took command of the escalating situation. Operating with terrifying military precision, she did not just ask for cooperation. She launched a full-scale forensic audit into the York sisters' private financial universes. For months, a highly confidential investigative team combed through years of investments, charitable foundations, and social connections. Piece by piece, Anne and William assembled a highly classified internal dossier, and when the final pages of that report were compiled, the findings sent a deep, paralyzing chill through the highest echelons of the palace. The explosive dossier did not necessarily accuse Beatrice or Eugenie of committing a crime, but in the court of public opinion, what Anne uncovered was arguably just as dangerous. The intricate web of the sisters' private business relationships, silent partnerships, and venture capital interests reportedly mapped out a deeply disturbing pattern. Several of their lucrative financial connections appeared to intersect dangerously with the exact same murky, global networks that had previously surrounded the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. The Venn diagram of the York sisters' current business circles and their father's toxic past possessed terrifying, undeniable overlaps. Even if the princesses were entirely oblivious to the true nature of these shadowy associates, the reputational risk to the British monarchy was apocalyptic. If a single investigative journalist connected the dots between the current royal family's finances and the ghosts of the Epstein scandal, the resulting media firestorm would not just damage the crown, it could effectively end it. For an institution that had spent years bleeding public goodwill, this was a ticking time bomb they simply could not allow to remain inside the building. The climax of this shadow war occurred when Princess Anne marched into the private study of King Charles III and dropped the explosive dossier onto his desk. The document laid out the grim reality with brutal, uncompromising clarity. It detailed the sisters' fatal lack of compliance, highlighted the radioactive financial intersections, and delivered a stark ultimatum. The monarchy would face unpredictable, catastrophic fallout if immediate and severe action was not taken. The king, cornered by undeniable facts and the ruthless logic of his heir, was forced to make the most agonizing decision of his reign. He had to sever the infected branch to save the tree. When Beatrice and Eugenie were finally summoned and confronted with the damning contents of the dossier, sources described the emotional devastation as absolute. They felt ambushed, betrayed, and entirely stripped of their dignity. But their tears held no currency in William's new palace. To the future king, this was never personal. It was a matter of national security. The ban from the summer's most prestigious racing event was merely the opening salvo, because the discoveries within that secret dossier did not just ruin the lives of two princesses, they triggered the creation of a terrifying new rulebook. A set of laws so strict, so unforgiving, that it would change the lives of every single royal forever. What exactly is inside this new Windsor Magna Carta, and how is it about to purge the palace of its weakest links? Do not look away, because the era of royal slaughter is just beginning. While the ironclad rules of the new Windsor Magna Carta are actively sweeping through the palace corridors, violently uprooting anyone who poses even a fractional threat to the crown, there is one man who is already living the absolute worst-case scenario. To fully understand the sheer, terrifying power of this new royal regime, we must look away from the glittering public events and turn our gaze toward a heavily guarded, incredibly silent estate located deep within Windsor Great Park. Here, trapped behind high walls and heavy security gates, resides the former Duke of York, a man now quietly and coldly referred to by palace insiders simply as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. For over 6 decades, this man moved through the absolute highest echelons of global society, completely cloaked in the impenetrable armor of royal privilege. He was the favored son, a man who firmly believed that his royal bloodline was a divine shield, guaranteeing him endless luxury, unquestioned authority, and permanent protection from the consequences of his own actions. But today, that delusion has been violently shattered. The man who once commanded fleets and rubbed shoulders with the world's most powerful billionaires has been reduced to a solitary, deeply paranoid figure, wandering the empty, echoing halls of a sprawling mansion that has rapidly transformed from a luxurious royal residence into a gilded, high-security prison. The isolation of the former prince is not an accident. It is a highly calculated, surgical operation executed with terrifying precision by the very institution he once represented. He is no longer viewed as a difficult family member. He is treated as a highly contagious existential threat to the survival of the monarchy. Every single day that his name remains associated with the crown, the institution bleeds public trust. Therefore, the palace, operating under the ruthless new directives of the Prince of Wales and the Princess Royal, has completely severed his oxygen supply to the outside world. He has been systematically stripped of his military titles, his prestigious patronages, his public funding, and most devastatingly, his relevance. Inside the vast expanse of Royal Lodge, the psychological descent of the former prince is reportedly reaching a deeply alarming, critical threshold. Sources intimately close to the estate paint a terrifying, almost gothic picture of a man teetering dangerously on the absolute brink of total psychological collapse. As the early months of 2026 rolled in, bringing with them a fresh wave of unsealed, highly damaging legal documents tied to his darkest associations, the reality of his permanent exile finally broke him. Stripped of the sycophants, the aides, and the constant hum of royal importance, he is left entirely alone with the crushing weight of his catastrophic legacy. Insiders describe a daily routine steeped in severe paranoia and erratic behavior. He is reportedly obsessed with the phantom enemies he believes are actively conspiring against him, entirely blind to the brutal reality that his own reckless, documented associations are the sole architects of his total destruction. He fixates on the agonizing loss of trivial, everyday privileges, the revoking of special parking permits, the removal of elite security details, the sudden silence of the telephone. It is a pathetic, agonizing descent. The situation has grown so incredibly dire that unconfirmed reports suggest he has been placed under high-level observation, a quiet, desperate measure to prevent a tragic, irreversible conclusion to his spectacular fall from grace. Yet, perhaps the most chilling aspect of this entire ordeal is the shockingly cold, pragmatic response from the royal institution itself. In previous generations, the family might have rallied around a crumbling prince, sacrificing their public standing to protect their own flesh and blood. But not anymore. The new Windsor regime has adopted a stark, completely unforgiving philosophy. The fragility of one single individual can absolutely never dictate the survival of the crown. While the human tragedy of a father losing his mind and his daughters being cast into social exile is undeniably profound, the machinery of the monarchy simply continues to grind forward, completely unbothered. To hammer the final nail into the coffin of his royal existence, the Crown Estate has reportedly initiated an aggressive restructuring of the Royal Lodge property itself. This is not mere maintenance. Insiders describe it as a systemic, physical cleansing. The very footprint of his existence is being quietly erased, preparing the ground for a future where his name is nothing more than a dark, cautionary footnote in the long, bloody history of the British monarchy. He believed his birthright guaranteed him a lifelong seat at the table, failing to grasp the ultimate, brutal truth of the modern era. Royal privilege is not a permanent entitlement. It is a fragile, highly conditional trust granted by the public. And once that trust is betrayed, the fall is absolute, endless, and entirely without mercy. The York experiment has completely failed, leaving behind a shattered father and two devastated daughters, all permanently exiled into the shadows. The royal institution has proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it possesses the terrifying capacity to completely destroy its own members in order to survive. But as the smoke clears from this ruthless internal purge, a massive, glaring void has been left at the very heart of the royal family. With the problematic elements brutally amputated, the crown desperately needs a powerful, unblemished beacon of light to distract the world from the darkness of the recent slaughter. Who possesses the sheer star power, the flawless reputation, and the unwavering discipline to step into the blinding spotlight and save the newly reforged monarchy? Keep watching, because the ultimate savior of the Windsor dynasty is about to make a return so spectacular it will rewrite the rules of power forever. As the heavy smoke finally clears from the most ruthless internal purge in modern royal history, a massive, glaring void has been left at the absolute center of the palace. The violent, systematic amputation of the former Duke of York and the terrifying public exile of Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie have successfully removed the toxic infection that was actively threatening the crown. But an ancient institution built entirely on pageantry, tradition, and public adoration cannot survive on discipline and fear alone. It desperately requires a beacon of absolute perfection to blind the world to the brutal, cold-blooded slaughter that just took place behind closed doors. And in a masterstroke of sheer strategic brilliance, the palace has unleashed its ultimate weapon. Following an agonizingly long absence of over 2 years, having battled a severe and deeply personal health crisis, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, is making her highly anticipated, triumphant return to the global stage. The palace has officially confirmed that the future queen will stand proudly shoulder to shoulder with King Charles III at the upcoming Royal Ascot. This is not merely a polite social appearance or a gentle, gradual return to public duties. This is a carefully orchestrated, phenomenally powerful statement of absolute stability, unbroken resilience, and unyielding continuity. It is the palace broadcasting to the entire planet that the core of the monarchy remains entirely unbreakable, no matter how chaotic the outer edges have become. The precise timing of this historic announcement is nothing short of a public relations masterpiece. By pairing the devastating, highly publicized ban of the York sisters with the glorious return of the beloved Princess of Wales, the new royal regime has created the ultimate, undeniable visual contrast. On one side, you have the discarded, tragic remnants of the old era. Royals who falsely believed their bloodline excused them from transparency, now completely isolated and erased from the public eye. On the exact opposite side, you have Catherine, a woman who married into the institution, who faced unimaginable personal trials behind palace walls, yet never once wavered in her absolute, ironclad commitment to duty. She is the living, breathing embodiment of the new Windsor standard. While Beatrice and Eugenie retreat into the cold, unforgiving shadows of their spectacular fall from grace, Catherine's return is strategically designed to completely reassure a deeply fractured nation. Her presence serves to validate the ruthless, surgical measures taken by Prince William and Princess Anne over the past several months. It proves to the public that the harsh, unforgiving rules of the new institutional Magna Carta are not just about punishing the wicked. They are fundamentally about elevating the worthy. Under this terrifyingly efficient new regime, royal privilege is no longer an automatic birthright handed down through generations. It is a strictly audited, heavily monitored privilege that must be earned every single day through flawless behavior and total submission to the crown. When the grand carriage procession rolls into the lush green grounds of Royal Ascot this summer, the eyes of the world will not just be watching who is smiling inside the carriages, they will be intensely focused on who is glaringly absent. The empty spaces where Beatrice and Eugenie once stood will echo louder than any official palace press release ever could. Their absence is the permanent, physical manifestation of the absolute consequences of crossing the Prince of Wales. But as the flashing cameras pan to the radiant, resilient Princess of Wales standing gracefully in the royal enclosure, the public will be claimed a completely new, incredibly comforting narrative to consume. They will see a monarchy that is disciplined, completely unified, and entirely purged of its weakest, most dangerous links. The dramatic events culminating in the spring of 2026 mark the absolute, definitive end of a deeply flawed era. The days of sweeping massive financial scandals and toxic associations under the royal rug are permanently over. The old, tired mantra of never complaining and never explaining has been violently replaced by a new, aggressive strategy. Identify the threat, eliminate the risk immediately, and protect the institution at all absolute costs. The monarchy has officially transitioned from a complicated, endlessly forgiving family into a ruthless, modern corporate entity that views its own members strictly as either highly valuable assets or terminal, radioactive liabilities. There is absolutely no middle ground left to stand on. The king, guided by the incredibly sharp, uncompromising vision of his heir and his sister, has successfully orchestrated a royal survival masterclass. The palace has proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that it is more than capable of executing its own flesh and blood socially and professionally if it means securing the throne for the next generation. The message sent to every single remaining member of the extended royal family is bone-chillingly clear. Absolute transparency, unwavering loyalty, and total obedience are no longer optional requests. They are the only way to survive the terrifying dawn of this new Windsor era. But as we witness this incredible, historic transformation unfold before our very eyes, we are left with a deeply unsettling, highly philosophical dilemma. We have just watched a powerful institution systematically destroy a father's mind and completely exile two daughters in order to save its own glittering reputation. The survival of the crown has been entirely secured, but the human cost is absolutely staggering. So, we turn the final, ultimate question over to you. Can a family ever truly justify acting with such cold-blooded, calculating ruthlessness toward its own flesh and blood, even if it is to protect a 1,000-year-old legacy? Does the survival of the monarchy excuse the complete destruction of the Yorks? Drop down into the comments right now and let us know whose side you are truly on in this incredible royal war. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a single update as this unprecedented palace crisis continues to unfold. Until next time, keep watching the throne.